Jessica Jones Season 2 is out now on Netflix, and this time round Jessica Jones is on the hunt for this company called IGH. It was set up at the end of Season 1 where Trish Walker got those documents about IGH, and they may be the company responsible for Jessica getting her superpowers. So Jessica is now on the hunt for these people. She wants to find them, bring them to justice, and get some answers. I loved Jessica Jones Season 1. I rewatched it the other day. I still love it. I think it's one of the best Marvel Netflix shows so far, and I love Jessica Jones' presence in The Defenders, so I was very excited for Season 2. And as I expected, Season 2 wasn't as good as Season 1, but it was still a very solid season of television. Kicking off big, Jessica Jones is still an endlessly engaging protagonist. She's still got an axe to grind, she's still damaged from something, and I was really curious about what that would be in Season 2 because she literally confronted her demon in Kilgrave in Season 1, so would I care about her as much in Season 2? And then after watching Episode 1, I was like, yeah, I still care about Jessica Jones very much, and I was invested in her storyline from the start. Once again, I loved her interactions with some of the other characters like Malcolm, who's now her associate at Alias Investigations, and she keeps firing him throughout the show. And there's this new neighbour who moves into the building. I like the relationship he has with Jessica in this season, as well as his son. His son loves superheroes, so every time he sees Jessica, he's like, hi super lady. Safe to say that Jessica Jones once again carries the entire season more or less on her back because of just how engaging of a protagonist she is and how much you care about her. And I also really like what the show had to say about superheroes, because super people are kind of frowned upon by a lot of people. And it also illustrates that somebody getting superpowers is not always a good thing. In fact, it can be kind of a really bad thing. There is a great line spoken earlier in the show that sums it up perfectly. With great power comes great mental illness. And that take on superheroes and superpowers just really fascinates me, and I love how they did it in Season 2 of this show. Sometimes someone getting superpowers could be the worst thing to ever happen to them. The first half of Season 2 is a mystery with all the cool detective noir stuff you loved in Season 1. Jessica's following paper trails, she's following clues, trying to find out more about this IGH company that gave her powers. But then the second half of Season 2 deviates in this completely different direction that I did not expect at all. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil too much in this video, I'm not going to ruin anything about the second half, but the second half of Season 2 turns into this unexpected family tragedy. Jessica faces a really interesting dilemma in the second half of this show, and it really gets you to think about what would you do in her situation. In some ways, Jessica's emotional journey in Season 2 is even more personal than it was in Season 1. Christian Ritter was talking about this in an interview a while back, and it sums it up perfectly. She said that Season 1 was in Jessica's head, but Season 2 is in her heart. And I was really invested in Jessica's emotional journey in this season. I was just like, oh my god, Jessica, you've got some big damage. It makes me wonder what her arc in Season 3 is going to be, because how much damage can one person possibly have in their lives? Let's talk about the villainous aspects of the show as much as I possibly can, because that's part of the dilemma that Jessica faces. The villain in Season 2 isn't really a villain, like they're not a mustache twirling bad guy doing bad guy things for the sake of being a bad guy because they need a bad guy in a superhero show. It's more complex than that, and it's the villain that gives Jessica that interesting dilemma, and it's really thought-provoking actually. But one thing that was kind of inevitable with Season 2 is the big Kilgrave shaped haul of it. The villainous aspect of Season 2 works for Season 2, and I liked the villainous aspect of Season 2, but it just wasn't as compelling as Kilgrave was in Season 1. In Season 2 you don't get that same sense of urgency to stopping the villain doing their bad stuff. In Season 1 you got really invested in the mission to stop Kilgrave because of how bad of a man he was and how unstoppable he was. You don't necessarily get that in Season 2, at least not for the most part, and I understand why, because it wasn't about the urgency of it per se. It was all about Jessica's dilemma and figuring out what to do and whatnot. I just liked that urgency feeling in Season 1 with Kilgrave and trying to put a stop to him. Like I said earlier, Season 2 wasn't as good as Season 1. There were a couple of bumps in the road with Season 2, and my biggest problem with Season 2 was that I didn't really care all that much about the side characters and their subplots. Jerry Hogarth is back in Season 2, played once again by Carrie Ann Moss, and she's got this big problem where she's been diagnosed with ALS, and she's trying to find out different ways to get around it, trying to find some cures. And I just didn't really care all that much about Jerry Hogarth's problems in this show, which is not a disrespect to anybody with ALS, it's just from a story and character perspective, Jerry Hogarth was the thing that I cared about the least in Season 2. Although there was one moment in one of the later episodes where something really bad happens to her, and I did actually kind of feel bad. I was like, oh, that really does suck. And Trish Walker's got her problems that she's dealing with in Season 2, and again, I just couldn't get invested in that either, and plus it was kind of a retread of a storyline that was done in Season 1, just with a different character. Every time it cut away from Jessica to these other characters doing their own things, it just kind of grinded my investment into the main storyline with Jessica almost to a halt, and I was just like, can we get back to Jessica please? I understand a TV show needs subplots and needs other characters to do things to flesh it out and make it feel less linear, but make the side characters as compelling and interesting as possible. And going back to Jessica's dilemma, as interesting as it was, she is dealing with this dilemma and she's pondering about it for like the last 5 or 6 episodes of the show. And without spoiling it, in the final episode, this character comes to a decision and comes to a conclusion, and I really feel like that they could have come to that conclusion much earlier on. It kind of makes the show feel deliberately dragged out to fit the 13 episode thing that they like with the Marvel Netflix shows. I said this back in my review for The Punisher in November, but 13 episodes seems like a couple episodes too long for these Marvel Netflix shows, except for The Defenders, which was 8. Usually by about episode 10 or 11, I'm kind of ready for the show to end at that point, and it's starting to run out of steam a little bit. I kind of felt the same way about Jessica Jones Season 2. Season 2 wasn't quite as good as Season 1, but Season 2, once again, was still a really solid season of TV for Jessica Jones. It further fleshes her out, and Jessica Jones might just be my favourite Marvel Netflix protagonist. I know Daredevil's really badass and he comes very, very close second, but just the sheer emotional involvement with Jessica Jones' character and how much you care about her makes her my favourite Marvel Netflix protagonist, and I can't wait to see more of her. In the end, I'm going to give Jessica Jones Season 2 a 3.5 out of 5. So Jessica Jones Season 2, have you watched it yet? Are you going to watch it? What do you think of the Jessica Jones character? What are your thoughts on the Marvel Netflix thing as a whole? Whatever you want to tell me about anything, let me know in the comments below, and if you want to see more of my stuff, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.